right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Stogie podcast. It wasn't too long ago we posted our latest episode. Carl, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm very good. There's actually a snowstorm in Stockholm right now, and I know what the topic of this podcast is, and it's making me a little bit depressed thinking back at where I was a couple of weeks ago, and now it's like half a meter of snow outside.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, lad, like you said, we posted the John Huber one pretty recently. That was a really good episode. He was a great guy. But now we're back to our old roots, lad.
Exactly, just you and I. But we are still continuing our interview format. I mean, our latest episodes have been just us interviewing people, and I guess today will be along those lines. Except that you will be the guest, and I'll be hosting today's interview. Because you had an incredible experience on your recent trip to the Dominican and the Procigar Festival. I mean, if you followed us on Instagram and saw that you posted updates along the trip, but let's just take some time here for you to digest the trip and let the listeners hear about your time there. And
let me just define. I just realized that I think a lot of people don't really know what Procigar or the festival is.
Right.
So just to define the concept, because I didn't know much about it before I got into the whole festival thing and was booking it. Procigar is actually an association of all the biggest cigar producing companies in the Dominican Republic. There's 11 of them. So part of it is Arturo Fuente, Davidoff, of course. You have La Aurora, La Flor Dominicana. Those are like the major ones people know of. Tabacalera Palma, which makes La Galera, is in there. So there's a whole bunch of brands. You can Google them if you want to see the whole list. They actually announced one more new member for the first time in a long time. So it's going to be 12. They announced during the thing. But basically, yeah, it's an association for the Dominican based companies. Of course, a lot of them, like EP Carrillo, is also part of it. They make cigars with tobacco from other places. They all do, but basically they have their production and main stuff in the DR. And yeah, it's an association, and every year they do this big festival to celebrate the DR, celebrate the production, and kind of also a bit of marketing for themselves and the whole production. So yeah, that's what this whole festival is. So it's not the government of the DR hosting it like it is in Cuba, and it's not like one company either. So yeah, that's what that is.
Nice. So you don't have to be a professional to be there either.
No, but I guess I can talk about that later. But there were definitely less tourists than I thought. But yeah, keep going, lad.
Yeah. So let's just start off with a straight to the point question here. As the festival in general, would you say it was worth it? And how much did you spend on the trip and all that?
Yeah. That's the question that most people sent for sure. The festival costs. You can get the whole ticket for like 2,300 euros, dollars ish. It's actually more close to dollars nowadays with the exchange rates. So $2,300 more or less. And if you want to book the whole thing, you can first go to La Romana, which is in the south coast of the Dominican Republic. And there you can see General Cigars, which was not of interest for me or the group that I was traveling with. They make all the non-Cuban versions of Partagas, H. Upmann, Cohiba, that stuff that you guys in the US are more known to smoke, but we don't have those at all in Sweden, of course. And it's also kind of far away, and that part of the festival is a newer edition, so it's much more toned down. The group that went seemed really small, it looked like it was 20 people. Okay. So I don't think there was a massive interest. But after that, the rest of the festival is in Santiago de los Caballeros. So for that price, and that's in the north of the DR, in the middle of the country more. It's not on the coast, and that's where basically all the tobacco production in the DR is. But what you get from that, to answer the question if it's worth it, you get first one welcome cocktail dinner where you get a box of cigars and cigars to smoke there. Then you get a tour on the second day of your choosing, and we'll get into what we did, but you get a tour there, and on those tours, depending on where you go, it'll be a little different, but you get a lot of cigars. You get a really good lunch, open bar, premium open bar. Then you get a welcome dinner, which is a more gourmet style dinner, open bars again. You get a whole box of cigars again. Then repeat on the third day, so you get a tour of your choosing, a lunch, and the white party dinner, which is massive, a box of cigars. And then the last day, it's a field day where you basically can, if you really want to, you can go around and get as many cigars as you want if you want to engage. And then there's the final gala dinner where you get a massive gourmet dinner again, open bar, and a box of cigars. So there is a bit of a formula there, but basically you get around close to, depending on how hard you want to go on the challenge, you get around 100 cigars from the festival. A lot of it is very rare stuff. So it's very worth it in that sense, because you get, I mean, I didn't do the math directly, but you know, I definitely got over $1,000 in just cigars to bring home in market value, probably closer to 1,500, something like that. So you recuperate a lot of your ticket in cigars. So if you want to go back home and sell those cigars, you know, you can get a lot of that money back. Right. I'm not going to do that, of course. I want to smoke my stuff, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of actual value that you get that's not just, you know, more abstract experience.
Exactly.
And then the value of those dinners that we'll get into more is quite high. And then for me, you know, beyond that, that's the monetary value, and that I think is very worth it. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is super rare. We got an unreleased EP Carrillo that wasn't even announced. We got it, like, we were the first people to know about the cigar at all. Mm-hmm. In one of the boxes, you get the Fuentes you get are event only stuff. So two of them are cigars that even Manny, who I traveled with, you guys have seen in the videos, he didn't even know about, and he is a Fuente nerd.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Quite priceless in itself, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then, you know, it's all the top of the line. So in the boxes that you get at the dinners, every brand puts one cigar in, so it's 11 per night, 4 nights in a row. But all those cigars are the top of the line. So you're getting Opus, and you're getting event-only Fuentes, and you're getting each brand's best stuff, basically. So they're all like $25, $30+ cigars each. So yeah, you could do the math, but in that sense, I just want to hone in on this a lot, because a lot of people don't seem to understand. I'm getting the vibe that a lot of people don't understand when they see the price. They're like, they jolt back a little and say like, wow, $2,000+, that is a lot to just be at a festival, but it's so much more than that, right? Yeah. And Lad, we talked about the Habanos festival. I mean, what would you say you think sounds more worth it?
I mean, yeah, you described it. The differences in how many cigars and everything you get, and I mean, you get like tenfold the amount from the Procigar festival. So from your description, absolutely the Procigar, and just, you know, the range of brands that are there as well.
Right.
Just, yeah, I'd say easy choice.
All right, Lad. Well, that's my rant on the worth it part. It's important to me to describe what it is, because I think the Procigar Festival is very underrated, is my vibe, and they do their best to make it very worth it. So that is my take on that.
Yeah, first thoughts, very well summarized. But just to start out with your whole itinerary, really your cigar trip started before you actually got to the Dominican. You had a stopover in Madrid, right, where you had a layover a night, and got up to some cigar shopping and smoking. Tell us, what did first of all, who were you traveling with? If you wanted to mention, you mentioned Manny, and then, but also what did you get up to in Madrid?
Yeah. So for those that haven't watched the videos, I would say the best way to go about doing this is watch my vlogs first, and then, because this is kind of a talking about the like in-depth version of the vlogs. But yeah, if you see, I've traveled from Sweden with a group of 3 other Dominican friends. They are from the DR, but they live here in Sweden. The guy that I actually flew with was Manny, as you guys saw in the videos. He's he grew up in Santiago, where the festival is. That's the second biggest city in the DR, I should add, and that is where, like I said, all the tobacco production is. So he was kind of the core of all this. He's who introduced me to the whole festival. But what was really clutch about this whole thing was when you go down, you have to from Stockholm. The best sort of flight route is Stockholm, Madrid, and then Madrid to Santo Domingo, which is the capital. Yeah. But you have to stay over for a night in Madrid. But it's like it's not like you land really late and get up really early. Like we landed in the afternoon and our flight was like midday the next day, so we had time to go into the city. And I know you and we've almost definitely mentioned it a lot, Magallanes, on this podcast at some point, right? I think it's been like a bucket list store.
I think so. One of the early ones.
Thinking back to some podcast when we started out with this like 2 years ago. I think we probably mentioned it, but it was, for me, it was super cool because I've been wanting to go to that store for a long time now. It was definitely not its former glory, lad. I'm going to tell you. I think I sent you some videos. I mean, that used to be one of the absolute best stores in the world for like both Cuban and non-Cuban, because it's not an LCDH because they technically can't exist in Spain. The government has to approve, like you can't. I've never understood this. I've had a lot of Spaniards try to explain the system to me, but for some reason La Casa del Habano franchise stores are not legally allowed in Spain. Okay. And because Spain has such a good relation to Cuba and Habanos, the whole thing, they basically have they get sort of their special treatment. So these stores can kind of be LCDHs, but they can still sell other stuff. But rant aside, back in the day, Magallanes used to have so much. Like, the store is pretty massive. You go like deep into it, and half of it is non-Cubans and half of it is Cubans. But where the Cubans are now, it's all just spirits. Like, they just have shelves and shelves of Macallan and whiskey and stuff. And there were about 24 Cuban cigars, I think, in the store, maybe 34, and that's individual cigars.
Yeah, exactly.
There was like 1/2 box of a Trinidad cigar. Yeah. There were like 2 almost full boxes of the Romeo y Julieta Línea de Oro. So this is just the most expensive stuff. Yeah. There were 3 Rafael Gonzalez Perlas, individual ones. Yeah. There was 1 Romeo y Julieta Club Kings, and there was 1 Monte Cristo No. 2, and that was it. Oh my God. Oh, wow. So it was like, it was depressing. It was crazy to see. Yeah. It was worse than when we visited Paris, even, lad.
Yeah.
Paris, I remember.
And I remember that was shocking. But this sounds like, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was basically the cigars that no one can afford and the stuff that no one really wants to buy. That was it.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I wasn't there for the Cubans anyway. And I got some cigars for you, lad. Because Davidoff, for some reason, are cheaper at that store than anywhere else in the world. They're much more expensive in the DR even. Because in the DR they have to export them technically and then re-import them because they're made in like a free zone.
Okay.
But yeah, at Cava Magallanes it's almost half price to anywhere else. So I could buy, I bought some cigars for you, lad, and it was like the Nicaragua Robusta was like 14, 15 euros or something, which is...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like half
price
MSRP,
compared to Sweden, yeah.
Half price compared to Sweden, and probably like 30% off the US prices. But in any case, it was incredible. So I stocked up there. I doubled my budget immediately. I had a budget of X amount, and I spent double already. So that was kind of a dire situation. And then we went to Club Pasión de Habanos, which is a really cool experience. It was pretty dead if you saw the videos. There was like no one there. I think maybe because we came right before closing.
Okay, yeah.
But for us, lad, that's one of those. If you remember when we went to JJ Fox, and you're shocked at how easy it is to smoke there.
Yeah, exactly.
This was the same thing. Like, it's a private club, but you just have to sign up when you get there. But we didn't even have to sign up. The guy just kind of let us in, I think, because it was like close to closing. And the only thing you need to do is buy something to drink. We just bought like a glass of Rioja, I think, like Spanish red wine. It was like nice. €8 for like a really nice glass of wine. Yeah. And that was all we did, and then we brought our own cigars and smoked them.
Wow, that's awesome. Really nice.
But that was Madrid. 2 bucket list things crossed off.
Yeah. Nice. Continuing then, the next day when you landed in Santo Domingo, you had some downtime before the festival started. Tell us, what did you get? Did you do some sightseeing?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny because when we got there, both Oswaldo, who's the other guy we were there with, you guys saw him in the video as well if you looked, both him and Manuel described Santo Domingo as being a city with insane amounts of traffic. And I've lived in a lot of places, and I remember living in Beijing, and I thought that was chaos and stuff. I don't know what it was like for you in Singapore, lad. I don't know what the traffic, I can't remember. It was so long I was there, but... For some reason,
I think it was mostly in like Malaysia and Vietnam where the traffic was crazy. I mean, with the mopeds and all that.
Yeah, Vietnam is true.
Yeah.
but I kind of scoffed at it. But I was shocked, like when I got there, how insane it was. Like it was the most traffic probably I have experienced.
But
So
was
it
it
took
like while driving, or was it more like it was just standing still?
both
Yeah.
while driving, because there are no speed limits in this country, and that's not like that was also something I thought was kind of a joke. But we drove the next day from Santo Domingo to Santiago, which is basically cross the entire island, and I did not see a single speed sign, like not even one. So there are no speed limits, so you get a mixture of everything. But basically, the city of Santo Domingo is the first city in all the Americas. That's where Christopher Columbus landed. So it's built like an old colonial town, so it's all one way. It's only one lane in the whole city, like in the center, because it's like it's built so. I mean, it was dirt roads, right? So it's so narrow, so it's all one way. So that makes it insanely slow. And then there are stop signs all the fucking time. So, but we had some nice dinner, and then we went to this store called Cabinet, which is like a chain of stores. If you ever travel to the Dominican Republic, like just procure your closest cabinet. They have one in like all the major cities, and it was really good. Like their stock was
the biggest
amazing.
one is in Santo Domingo then, or
Manny, I would need Manny here, but there were two. The funny thing, the bad thing for my budget was that our hotel was 2 meters away from the cabinet. Like it was next door. So one of the cabinet stores on Avenida Theodore Roosevelt, I think it was called, or FDR. I don't remember what. Some Roosevelt or Franklin or some president.
Specifics.
On that street next to our hotel was a store. So the first thing we did was go in there and buy cigars. So I blew my budget again.
What did you buy there?
That was a massive store. That might have been the biggest one. They had a lot of Ilusione. They had a lot of tatuaje, a lot of crowned heads. And that's the kind of stuff I wanted to get, especially crowned heads, which was really fun to see.
Exactly, crowned heads from our most recent podcast.
Right, and it was so close. Like we'd just done the interview like a week before, so that was it was awesome to see. And they had Padron, and these stores are supposed to be quite expensive, Manny and Osvaldo said, but like everything was US MSRP.
Okay.
So they were all like $8-9 cigars, which for us in Sweden is really cheap. Yeah, but I think for that reason, the locals might shop at other stores. So, you know, I got some cigars with pretty much pitch black cellophane. Like we found some Padrones that were so aged, they looked like they were 10 plus years old. And I smoked one of them, and that night actually I smoked one. We had all planned to smoke a Davidoff Puro de Oro. That's like this Davidoff that has this gold band, and they stopped producing it. And it's like a really cool cigar, but it was really bad. We all had bad experiences with it. It was tasteless. It was shocking construction, which is weird for Davidoff. But then I smoked one of those Padrons. It was like 2000, like it was the 1000 series, and that was incredible. But the problem was that I had already spent so much money on cigars, and the next day was the Fuente Club, and I bought some cigars for you there too, lad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, continuing then too. I mean, this is still before the festival has even started. You were mentioning that you traveled halfway across the country to get to Santiago, and this was, I mean, one of the you just posted a vlog from this. Like what was it, a day or two ago? And of course it's the Fuente tour, but not the tour with the festival. You got there a day early, and tell us about that experience. More of the feelings when you stepped into some of those iconic rooms, take us through it.
Yeah, firstly, if you do a trip to the DR and you go to Santo Domingo, you should definitely go to the Arturo Fuente Club. They have their own store and lounge, but at their own store, I think they almost make a loss on those cigars because they also have to export and import in the same way as Davidoff have to do. But they sell everything at extremely cheap prices. Like Opus is like $18-19, which is insane for Opus X. And they have everything in stock all the time. So go there. A lot of the people that we talked to at the festival later didn't know about that shop. I don't know why it's not known, but they were shopping at Cabinet. And at Cabinet, the Fuente stuff is really expensive, but it's like half price at the Fuente Club. So definitely go there. You saw that on the video where we shopped for like $4,000 plus because we had some stuff to bring home from friends. But like Ruben said, shout out to Jose Blanco, who we had on this podcast, for setting this up, because he set up the tour that we could go to the chateau. And I called you from there, lad. I felt a little bad because you looked sad, man, when I called you from the field.
I mean, it looked like a dream. Seriously, it didn't even look real, to be honest. Some of the scenery from around there.
Yeah, it was nuts. But yeah, I mean, it was hard to take in. Like I said that in the video, but that was also like genuine. Like, you know, Ruben and I have done so much Fuente based just deep dive. Like we did that whole podcast and read so much about the company, and you know, we had Jose Blanco on, and we've been on the Professor show with Carlito, and we've just, I think like Fuente is the brand that we have resonated with the most, right? And like, I didn't really ever think I would see the chateau and the factory like I did. So like when I was there, it was hard to like almost believe. It felt like such a magical place in my head. Mm-hmm. Like actually seeing it was insane. And I think I have a very oxymoronic experience, because I felt like it was small and big at the same time.
Right.
Because for some reason, like we saw all the fields and they are quite massive, but at the same time, all Opus tobacco is grown there.
Yeah.
And just to think that I'm looking out on the fields that is producing all the Opus that's going to go worldwide, it also felt like, wow, it's all just here. Like it was less abstract at that point than it felt. Like you think almost that it's going to be this massive production that you almost can't even see it all, but like we could really see all the fields. Like we could see the end of them. I don't know, it's hard to explain it, but at the same time we saw all these curing barns one after another. We saw all the workers working and the piles of leaves there. And at that point, it also did feel very big, because at that, when I see the stacks of the leaves, I can just imagine how many Opus X cigars that is. And it also just, so it was both sides of it. But it was amazing to see the detail behind it, and I'll get to that more when we get to Davidoff. But they go so far above and beyond what is necessary, because it feels like a home when you go there. It looks like a place where someone lives. When I showed my family the videos of the chateau, they asked like who lives there, and no one. I guess they use that for some events or whatever sometimes, but there's no one that lives there. I mean, it's so homely. They have like this outdoor patio area where it just looks like you could host a massive party and smoke cigars, but like that is the fields where they actually that's a farm, which is also insane to think, because it's just such a gorgeous place. But I really respect that a lot. They like Carlito really does so much more than he needs to, and I also want to mention that you can't go to the chateau. Like there's no public tours. You can't call a chateau. You can't go online and book a tour like you can with like wine producers and stuff like that. So the fact that, I've been to Concha y Toro, which is a massive wine producer in Chile. And that place was nice, but it wasn't even close to as nice as the chateau. And that place has like a tour every hour.
Yeah, exactly. They're public. I mean, they show it off, but this is
right.
I mean, from the videos, it looks like it's like the grass outside looked like it's kept like a golf course almost, and just everything was so perfect almost. It was crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. Like they have a bar where they had like a really kind woman working. I don't know. Like it's crazy that they have that for themselves. Just I think it's a good thing that they don't have massive tours, because they wouldn't be able to keep it like this. It would need to be a lot bigger and more commercial and probably less nice. I mean, that's probably the effects of having a lot of like guests and visitors. You can't really keep it this nice and homely. But it was just unbelievable to think, like when we were walking around there, to think that it's not open to the public is kind of crazy, because they're keeping it so nice. But I drank the rum. I probably got like 4 glasses down in half an hour because it was so good. And the guy that was The guy that was
because it was
like
so good. It was that the entire reason, lad.
I like it was crazy to just go to that little barrel and
Yeah.
like take their family
Yeah.
around. But the guy that
Oh, yeah,
was
that was
hosting
such a
us
nice
was,
presentation of it, like direct from the barrel.
and again, it's not for public use. It's just
Yeah, no,
crazy. But the
exactly.
guy that was hosting us was awesome, and he was like, "No, take the glass with you." So like, because I was gonna just leave it after the bar. That's why I ended up drinking even more because
Yeah.
he like encouraged it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we walked around. We saw the curing barns. I think the coolest part of that first part of the chateau was that we went into one of the rooms where they like pack the tobacco and let it like sit for a little bit before shipping it off to the factory. And first of all, it was like 100 degrees Fahrenheit in there, he said, which I don't know what it is in Celsius, but it's extremely hot. Like after
Yeah.
like
Was it
2-3 seconds, I was wet of
35
sweat.
or something, maybe.
Something like that, yeah. And
Yeah.
super humid, like 90 plus in humidity. It was
Yeah.
it was what like walking into a steaming like rainforest. But he, the cool thing about it being like a private tour, the way it was he just ripped open one of the boxes and just like started, playing with the tobacco and showing us and letting us smell it. And that was like a really cool thing to see as well.
Yeah.
Because, you've seen it in the curing barns, and then just seeing the entire process so up close and personal was amazing. And just him just ripping open a box of Opus tobacco. Again, that was what made it seem so both big and small at the same time. Because, that's the stuff that's going to end up at a shelf probably in California or whatever in like a $35 cigar, but he just ripped it open and we like stuck our faces in the box and smelled it. It was just crazy.
What would you say
But
was
then-
the most?
yeah, sorry.
What would you say was the most like impressive part of the chateau?
I
Or
was
the
just
thing
going to
that-
mention it, so that was
Yeah.
good that you said that, because it's both the attention to detail, like I mentioned, but without sounding cheesy and like being genuinely truthful, the charitable foundation was really quite touching.
Yeah.
And the fact that they don't really advertise it and push it as much, like they mention it every once in a while, and you can find it on their website, but they're just doing that for the community. And I mean, we are in the middle of the country. This is literally in the middle of the middle, like as in the middle of the island as much as you can get. And the area around and Bonao and stuff, it's very poor, and it's just agriculture. I mean, it's just farms. This is, there's nothing. And that community looked much more prosperous than the communities around it. And we got to see the schools, and they were beautiful. Like, they were nicer than any other school or health center or whatever that I saw in Santo Domingo in the capital.
Yeah.
So these were beautiful, beautiful, beautiful buildings. They were kept really nice. They were building a new like art center, which was incredible, and it was massive. Like, it looked like a huge campus.
Oh.
And just seeing that the whole community lived around this one family's brand, it was kind of incredible to see how much they do for the community. And it's just, I mean, obviously it helps the brand, but it is also just such a selfless thing to do, because not every brand, I mean, far from every brand does anything close to this.
Exactly.
I think that was probably it, and the views, and the fact that he does so much stuff that he doesn't need to. Like that, when we went up to the gazebo, like you saw, lad. That's where I called you.
The Jedi Council.
Oh my god, yeah, it looked like it actually. That's true. Yeah, when we went up there, that is nothing like connected to the cigar production. Like, that's completely quote unquote useless for them, but he just has that because it's nice.
Yeah.
And just that, like, it's all just things that are beautiful to celebrate the company, and like they went so above and beyond. It was incredible.
Exactly. It shows that they do so much more than just what gets to the bottom line. Like, they add so much stuff they don't need to, just because I mean, it's a way of life as well. It's their life. So
100%.
Yeah. Anything more to say about the Fuente private tour?
I think that's it. You guys got to watch the video if you haven't, to see.
Absolutely. To see the scenery that we're talking about, because it's impressive.
Definitely.
Okay, but so then the next day the festival actually has begun, and and this is where you got the welcome pack that you mentioned early in this podcast.
Yes, sir.
Which was a cigar from each brand, and do you want to go through what you got there? And because you also and what you smoked there as well, because it ended up being a bit different, right, than you expected?
In regards to like receiving cigars during the evenings, or
No, wasn't this the night where you ran back to the car to smoke the cigars?
no, that's actually that's the welcome dinner. So first it's the welcome cocktail. So it is a little bit confusing from the way. Yeah. So so first on the first day technically of the festival, we actually before this, just quick shout out to Edgar Julian Soed because we went to Saga. If you guys know the cigar brand Saga, they have a restaurant in the city of Santiago, which is one of the best restaurants in the whole city. That was something that really blew my mind because being in Sweden, cigars are not part of any culture whatsoever. I mean, cigars, we are weirdos here, right? Like when we sat outside a cafe smoking cigars, people looked at us weird. And there, cigars are connected to everything. Like I get to the airport and there are ads for La Aurora on the walls. Like they live and breathe cigars in that country, and it was so cool to see. And to see that one of the best restaurants, actually one of the best ranked restaurants in the city, is owned by the company that makes cigars is just unbelievable. But we had lunch there with Edgar Julian Sued, who we had on our podcast, was our first ever guest. That was a really cool thing to do. But after that, we go to the hotel, the big like hotel where most of the guests are staying, and you register there and you get like a backpack and your badge, your membership badge or whatever.
Yeah.
And in that backpack, there were a lot of stuff. There was a lot of crap. There were like mugs from Mercedes and like a bottle from Brugal, which I ended up not even bringing home. I realize now. And there was like the cigar holder from Intertabac, which was awful. It was 3D printed and it didn't work. Like the lid fell off, so you couldn't even use it. It was unusable. But then there was some really good stuff. So there was a bracelet from Le Fin Lam, which is awesome. And there was a cutter and lighter set from Colibri. So you got this like really big, nice Colibri lighter. And they were like festival exclusive with like cabinet branding on it. And you got a cutter from Colibri. So that was really cool. And then there's the box itself. And here I can highlight already because when I'm looking through the video of that first welcome box, you get 11 cigars, like I said. There's a Saga cigar that does not exist on the market. We can't figure out what it is. It's like, it doesn't, there's no other cigar like that I can find online. There's the LFD 25th anniversary, which is a super expensive cigar. You can Google that one. There's the La Aurora 100-year anniversary cigar. There's the Davidoff signature #1 Lancero, which is the limited edition this year. Only 15,000 boxes produced. That was really exciting to see. There's the Vegafina 1998 Lad. You know that cigar, right?
Yeah. Exactly. How was that?
But there's the vintage version. It's like a Lonsdale with like a footband. If you see the gold footband, I see. Yeah. So it's like a vintage version. There's a Opus X Forbidden 13 in Toro, which is really nice. Ipicarillo Encore Majestic, which that cigar of the year. Remember we did a review of that one.
Exactly.
So that was fine. But yeah, the box is nice in itself, and you get a lot of stuff in an ashtray and everything. Too. So that was really cool. And then after that, it's the welcome cocktail. Yeah. But that's not the welcome dinner.
No, exactly. So that's the next day. Right.
Yeah. But yeah, for the welcome cocktail, we arrived, and there we got cigars. So we'll get to it, lad, because I know what you're hinting at. But we actually did get cigars. So we got this welcome box, but we left the welcome box in the bag at home. We went to a different hotel where the welcome cocktail is. And it was a beautiful setting. They had live music. They had open bar, Brugal stand. They had a beer stand. Nice. They had tons of stuff, of course. We stayed until the absolute end. We were the last people to leave because we were enjoying it so much.
To kick
but
you
there you got... It was really funny because it was just a massive table with like a pile of Boveda bags. You know, those like sealable Boveda bags. And it was 2 cigars in each. And you could choose whichever you wanted. Mm-hmm. But the disparity was so different because in one bag there was a La Galera cigar and a Saga cigar, which together that's like $12. And then in another bag there's a Davidoff Grand Cru Toro, which is a massive like $35 cigar, and like another one. So we were like digging around, which is pretty funny because what would you feel like if you're like a brand owner for one of the smaller brands and you just see everyone's like looking around for Davidoff?
I mean, they must understand it, of course. I mean, it's such a difference. But yeah,
we got cigars there and we smoked those. And we thought that would be what would continue, but on the welcome dinner it was different. Basically, many years ago, before COVID and when the festival in the earlier years of it, during the dinners, the 3 gala dinners that there would be ladies walking around with like trays of cigars, and they would be handing out cigars to all the people there during the dinner. So you could basically grab as many as you want. It was a buffet of cigars. But they stopped doing that, and we didn't realize that they had stopped before. We thought they stopped doing that this year.
Mm-hmm.
And for the festival this year, they upped the prices. So we were pretty pissed off on the first welcome dinner, which was when we had to run to the car because we didn't bring our box. Basically, when you arrive to the gala dinner, the first thing there is a nice big table where you receive your box, and then there's a different table where you can check it in, like a coat check at a club or whatever. So you get like a slip of paper, and then you can leave the box there. So we checked our boxes in because we thought they're going to be handing out cigars, but they didn't. So we had to run out to the car and get cigars that were in there. But that was a little bit of a bummer at that point because we really thought that they had upped the prices and got rid of those cigars.
Right. Yeah.
Which would have made my analysis of if it's worth it or not different. But apparently they had stopped that a long time before. A part of the reason is because at the gala dinners, you can buy tickets individually to the gala dinners, and a lot of local Dominicans go. And apparently they were often like grabbing handfuls of cigars, and they were not the target audience. Like they want to spread their brands internationally. And the second reason was that every brand did not participate. So it's not like Arturo Fuente had Opus X everywhere. So it was like the smaller brands. So it was a little bit weird because the trays would be filled with some of the brands only. And it was just not a great vibe.
So what did you end up smoking? Yeah, no worries. Okay, just back to the first welcome cocktail. You say you were rummaging through the packs there. What did you end up getting from the?
I got the Davidoff. I got a Davidoff Grand Cru Toro. That's the cigar I smoked. And then there was a Saga. They have like I think it's called Short Tales or Short Stories. It's a really cool. You should Google that. Yeah, if you're listening to that, because the boxes are like a book. And there's like 7 episodes or whatever, and each episode is one cigar, and it's based on a theme. But I got the Tomo number 6, so the VI in Roman numerals. But this is actually where the palate fatigue already begins. Because on this day already, we went to Manny's aunt's cafe and had some amazing Dominican coffee, and I had a J. London Connecticut cigar. Then we went to the Saga restaurant, like I mentioned. I had 2 cigars there, both from Edgar. He was handing out cigars, which was super nice. So I'd already had 3 cigars. Yeah. Then we get to the cocktail, and I have this Davidoff Grand Cru Toro, which it's a 54 by 6 inch cigar. So it's a massive cigar. Even though it's a lighter cigar, the Grand Cru is not as light as like the Signature or Anniversario. So I've smoked 4 cigars already, and that's quite a lot. And my palate was like quite beat, and we had been drinking beers and rums the whole day. So I actually did not smoke anything more than that one cigar. So already on day 1, my palate's taking a beating a little bit.
Let's actually keep a total cigar count if you want for the whole trip. I mean, up until this point, you said 4 during that day.
2 in Madrid on the first day. 2 in Santo Domingo the second day.
Yeah.
1 cigar at the Chateau.
That was a Fuente, Chateau de la Fuente.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't mention that. Yeah. I smoked a Chateau, and then 1 cigar that evening too.
6
after the Chateau, which was a 2007 El Rey del Mundo Choix Supreme. So we were just smoking good stuff the whole time. And then 4 cigars the day after that. So we're at 10, right?
10, exactly.
For 10 in 3 days.
4 days, yeah.
4 days, okay, 4 days. That's better. That's a better ratio. But to be fair, I was flying for like a long time for those days. So I mean, Jesus.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, we were now at the second day of the festival, the day of the welcome dinner. But before that, there was you had a whole field day going on. This was the one you were hinting at, right? The Davidoff tour.
Yes.
And tell us what did this field day have to offer?
Yeah. So This is a double-edged sword of the festival, because basically that cocktail ran until like we left probably at 11:30, and probably fell asleep at like 12:30 or something, and we needed to get up the next day at like 7 a.m., which is like, it was fine. I was totally energized because it's so exciting. But these days are super intense, and it's like this every day. So you get to bed really late, get up really early. Which is a double-edged sword because it's so much fun to always. Yeah, definitely, right. Imagine complaining about this, but it's exciting because you want to do as much as possible, but at the same time, it's so intense. Like I was talking to my friends that I traveled with, especially Manny, and like the memories and the experiences that we made just at that lunch at Saga. It was a 4-hour long lunch. Like that was enough for like 2 days of like, stuff happening. So the fact that we also had the check-in thing, we got all those goodies, and then we went to the cocktail after, and like, there's so much stuff going on, which is like, if I could magically spread it out so you only do one thing a day, that would be probably the best, because then you can sort of process everything that's going on. But before you've even managed to process what's happening, you're on to the next thing. So that's what I mean with the double-edged sword, because it's so extremely, like, you're so hyped all the time because there's so much fun stuff going on all the time. But yeah, at 7 a.m. we got up. The buses leave at like 8 something from the hotel, and then you get to the Davidoff field, and I did not think I would be up for a cigar, but my palate was it was nuts. Like I was so excited to just do all this stuff, and the vibe was so good that I was always craving a cigar, basically, until the very end of the night, where obviously the day before I didn't. But I was basically always craving a cigar. So when we got to the Davidoff fields, we went to this field called Finca Schneider, which Schneider was the guy that bought Davidoff Ottinger from Zeno, and ended up moving to the DR and everything. And that was one of their new fields that Davidoff owned themselves. Because for those that don't know, they work together with Tabadom, which is a company that the Kellners own. And it's this weird sort of symbiosis. But that rant aside, we got to their field. It was beautiful. We were welcomed to a like really nice little hut or whatever you want to call it, with like glass walls. And we got breakfast kind of there with some really nice coffee. And here's where it gets crazy, because they screwed up here. Davidoff screwed up because basically they had humidors, these beautiful humidors, filled to the brim with cigars. And what we overheard later, Pedro Pablo, who is the master blender for Davidoff, who we talked to a lot there, and we became kind of friends with. He was a really chill guy. He was the guy hosting the entire tour. Yeah. So he's the master blender for Davidoff. And I heard him talking to one of the people working there, because the idea was there was one Aniversario Torpedo, there was one Grand Cru Robusto, and a Signature Special R. So there were 3 different kinds of cigars in those humidors. And the idea was that everyone got one of each when they got in. But what the people that were working with the humidors did, they just opened the humidors and they let them be open. So people were, if you look at the video that I'm posting, people just grab handfuls, and we did it too. I mean, like I got like 11, 12 Davidoff cigars that day.
Yeah.
And these are all really expensive.
Yeah.
But when one humidor ran out, I guess they just had to double down, because some people didn't get cigars because it was that crazy. Yeah. So they got another humidor and just opened it up and did the same thing. So people could basically grab as many Davidoffs as they wanted, which was nuts.
That's crazy. Just think, like a bottomless humidor with Davidoff cigars. I mean,
but that was a weird feeling, because like I was reflecting in that moment, like for us, when we go into a store, a Davidoff is kind of like a splurge, right? Like if you're spending money on a like a 35, but it became such a different product when you could just grab as many handfuls as you wanted. It just felt like it was a weird feeling. Like it was weird to see this product that you usually associate with like luxury and really treating yourself as just being something that you could just, It was basically just like nothing, It was crazy.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's insane. So did people, and did you included, smoke any cigars at this, like during the field day?
Yeah, right away. I mean, I smoked a Signature Robusto. I did a post on Instagram on that when I was standing in the fields there, and I had a coffee, and that was really cool. Like it was the same vibe as the Chateau the day before, like smoking the cigar that comes from that place.
Exactly.
It was it was really cool overlooking this ocean of just like a sea of tobacco leaves, just so many rows of tobacco. And knowing that that's the stuff that ended up in the cigars was really cool. So yeah, I smoked a cigar right away. I was craving it, and it was perfect. Davidoff in the morning like that, that was great with the coffee.
I remember when you were talking to me about this day, you even got to roll cigars, right?
Yeah, that was on the field day on Friday. That was like an event on Friday.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was the last day that they had it. So at Davidoff, we did get to do a lot of stuff there though, because they had set up. We got to plant and harvest, so we got to try to do that. And you know, the really cool thing is it wasn't just a gimmick. Like I harvested 2 leaves, and then I walked into the curing barn and gave it to the woman that was working there, and she hung it up in the curing barn. So like someone's actually going to smoke those leaves that I harvested. Like it wasn't. I guess, you know, harvesting is not difficult. Like it was just ripping it off, but still, like, you would expect it to be just kind of a gimmick, but it was like, we actually, you know,
that's actually going to end up in
Davidoff
someone's. I mean, you should get compensated at the very least.
No, I put it on my resume. You bet your ass I did.
Yeah.
Farm experience.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing with this product, right? That it's going to end up in someone's hands somewhere around the world. And that's crazy.
I wish I could see. I wish I could track where those 2 leaves like ended up. Like I wish I could see the whole way. You know, where the ones I harvested. It would just be cool to see if it ends up in some Chinese guy's humidor that never smokes.
Place a tracker on
it. But he talked a lot, and I'll try to post as much of it as possible. But he talked a lot of nerdy stuff. He showed each plant, what it does, where it's going to go. You know, he talked about each different seed that they were growing there. Again, we saw the curing barns, and that was really cool. And then we went to another area, which is called Jicome, and that's where they have the whole processing. So the first part, Finca Schneider, is just fields. It's just tobacco fields, and they cure the tobacco there, of course, and then they send it to other places. So this other spot in Jicome it's kind of in between field and factory, because it kind of looks like factories. As you know, you have people processing tobacco there, and they get a lot of tobacco from other countries there, but they're not rolling cigars there. So in this area, you have something that's super cool that only Davidoff had, which is their lab, as they called it. And that was an area where there were just greenhouses of these crazy tobacco plants where they did not take away the flower. Because if you know the way tobacco grows, it's actually a flower. Tobacco is a flower plant.
Yeah.
But to grow tobacco for cigars, you need to pluck the flower, because too much of the nutrients and energy goes to the flower itself.
Right.
So if you pluck the flower, it goes to the leaves instead, and the leaves grow as big as we're used to. But in these greenhouses, they kept the flowers because they were cross-pollinating. So you could see how they were like taking seeds from one of the flower and like planting it, and like basically it was plant porn that we're watching. But they were like experimenting.
Yeah.
With different plants and creating new seeds. If you guys know about Davidoff, they have all these crazy hybrids. Like they had the 702 series, which is their 702nd hybrid in Ecuador or whatever. Like they just have all these crazy lines. The Millennium series is also like a weird, like if you look at the breakdown, they call it like hybrid 157 or something, you know. So they have so many hybrids. And then outside of that crazy greenhouse, they had a field where they had a few rows of different tobacco plants, and they just plant the tobacco and see how well it grows. So that's just an experimental lot where they see if it grows well in reality or not. And then they had another room where they test the curing. So it was like a fake curing barn. Okay. It was a real curing barn, but it's like not tobacco that they're going to use for anything. It's just to see how it cures. So it was really cool to see how like experimental Davidoff are. And they also showed us how you plant the seeds, which was a huge process as well, and you'll see that in the video. But, you know, when you talk about the impressions, the Davidoff one was crazy because, you really see selecting the seeds is a crazy process. Only 40% of their seeds or something get used. So they're like very they scrutinize with their leaves a lot there. The whole, like, actually getting the seeds into the thing, like they have to put it in a shaker with ash to like see where they've planted it. It's this whole crazy process. Then after that, they by hand, when the seedlings grow to a few centimeters, they pluck those seedlings and put them in another lot, and then when they grow, they put them in another lot, and then another lot, and then they plant them in the fields, and like it's just unbelievable because the whole 200 pairs of hands thing sounds like such a gimmick, but I'm surprised it's not a higher number.
True.
It's an insane process.
Yeah. Wow. That's really, really cool. And like you were telling me about that you were very impressed, and your kind of image of Davidoff had shifted quite a bit after this field day and this tour. Yeah. Tell us what you meant by that.
Yeah, lad. So the biggest surprises thing that we talked about before recording here. This is kind of what I was hinting at. The biggest surprise almost out of the entire experience at Procigar was my image of Davidoff, like you just mentioned. I always thought of Davidoff as this like massive conglomerate and this kind of soulless company that has its head seating in Geneva and Switzerland, and then they just grow stuff in the DR or whatever. But it was an unbelievably warm company. I think they were almost the best out of all of them at Procigar. At the events they organized, they were outrageously generous with their cigars. Pedro Pablo, who's the master blender, like I said, he was insanely kind. He was just handing out cigars. He gave some really cool stuff that I can't even say here on the podcast. So, you know, we talked to Hamlet Espinal, who is like the head of Davidoff in the DR. He was outrageously kind as well. It felt like a family company. Yeah. Like it felt like a small family company, which was the opposite of what I thought. You know, I thought Davidoff was going to be, like a soulless big conglomerate. They were going to be very, holding back with the amount of cigars that they passed out. They passed out the most cigars out of any company there, and their stuff is pretty much the most expensive.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that was probably the biggest surprise. Yeah, I did not think they would be that way whatsoever. And Davidoff, before, like I said, it felt like a special occasion kind of cigar, but not the most interesting. Like now I feel like I want to smoke Davidoff all the time. Like it just feels like the most, I don't know. My perception flipped completely.
Yeah, that's true. And I think I definitely shared that view as well. Like before, how you're talking about this being just a big company and talking about just, wanting to sell cigars and money, that. But yeah, sounds like this definitely worked for their brand building at this cigar, even though they didn't do it intentionally. They're just showing what they do pretty much.
Yeah.
So next on this day was a tasting seminar. Where was this held? And
so this is the biggest hiccup of the whole event. Like the Procigar festival it runs extremely smooth. All the tours and stuff that I went on, the Fuente factory was the next day, and the Davidoff tour, which was what we just described, everything ran on time for us.
Yep.
But for the other tours, it did not. Basically, I mean, after the whole tour at Davidoff, we had a lunch. It was a massive lunch, a whole grilled pig, which they do in the DR all the time. Yeah. They gave us a Winston Churchill cigar to smoke during the lunch, and they gave us another goodie bag, which, we already got like 12 cigars.
Yeah.
They gave us a goodie bag with like a tubo set with like 3 Davidoff tubos, and it was really nice.
Oh, wow.
So we got 4 more cigars just that lunch. And an open bar as well, and I drank rum midday, which I never do otherwise. It's just the vibe was amazing.
Yeah.
But I only managed to smoke the half of the Winston Churchill, basically, because they're like, okay, we have to go now to run on time, which kind of sucked, but also I understand. But we went back to the main hotel in the middle of the city, where it's kind of the center of all the administrative stuff for the Procigar Festival. It kind of runs through there, and they have like a seminar event space room. And there were no people there. I mean, basically, like I just described, we got up at 7. The tour was like 6 or 7 hours long. We got back at like 4:30 p.m. To that hotel.
Yeah.
And the dinners all start at 7 p.m.
Right.
So you can imagine, like, we already barely have any time to go home and change. So there was a seminar that was supposed to be 1 hour long. We actually did it because we got 2 cigars there. But it was Ipicarillo and La Aurora, but the La Aurora tour was late, so the La Aurora people just never arrived, which was a little bit of a hiccup. But like I said, the traffic in the DR was unbelievably bad. So I don't understand how they're expecting to plan like this. I think it's cool that they try to do events the whole day, like they want you to be able to do something all day.
Right.
But at the same time, it's almost overambitious, right? Like, I don't know how they're gonna, because no one went and the people were too exhausted anyway. Most people went home to nap. But it was an event where we tasted an Ipicario the Inch, which is a 64 ring gauge cigar.
Ah, right.
Not my thing. It was good, but that's not my thing. And then we got a Laurora cigar, which I never smoked. And the people from Brugal, which is a massive rum company, they were there, and they talked about rum. And it was kind of half-assed, the event, because half of the people, the Laurora company, was not there. And I smoked a fourth of the Picarillo cigar because my palate was dead, and we only had an hour. So like, that was.
But how did like the seminar work? Were they? I mean, we've been with Jose Blanco.
It was a shit
Jose
show,
Blanco
right?
on a seminar. Okay.
It was not Jose Blanco. Apparently.
No. Exactly. No, I was saying that we had been on a seminar with Jose Blanco, and I mean, he's so involved in the like the entire smoke, just picking everyone's thoughts and just asking people what they're sensing.
Yeah, the reason I said this is apparently the years before it was usually Jose that did the seminar. I don't know why they didn't do that this year, but it was Ipicario, whatever. But it was not that. The guy from Ipicario just had a microphone and he talked a little about what the cigar was and what it was supposed to be like, and then the Brugal people explained why it was supposed to blend well with their rum. So that was it. I mean, it was not an open forum thing, and I don't know. Those events, this event was by far the worst of the whole thing. But it didn't really matter because I felt so drained. I didn't really have any energy to do anything intense anyway, so I was kind of happy it was that way. But if it just felt weird to smoke half a Winston Churchill and then smoke a third of an Ipicario, like throw these like nice cigars away. But that's the way it was.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So nothing magnificent going on there at the tasting seminar.
How's the cigar count, by the way, lad?
I was gonna ask you right now. It should be.
I mean,
this
it's
day
three
you had one
more.
Davidoff for the morning. Yeah, exactly. One at lunch, and then this one. So 3.
I didn't finish the last 2, I guess, but
Yeah, we'll add it to the list. But then we haven't yet made it to the dinner yet. So the day's not done. But you did mention a bit about the dinner. But the question I wanted to ask here is, who did you meet at the dinner?
Yeah.
And I guess also, what did you smoke?
Yeah. Great that you said that, because I almost forgot to say, I think almost the coolest thing about this entire festival is that about 60, almost, I would say 70% of the attendees are people that work with cigars.
Right.
So the dinners, there are, a few hundred people there. Tourists are the minority. Like, so you're just walking around and you see Carlitos Fuente III, Carlitos' son. Ciro Castella was sitting next, like the table next to us, which is the CEO of Arturo Fuente. I had a chat with Jose Blanco, as you guys saw on Instagram, and I think I'm going to cut that in the video as well. Of course, it was nice to see him again in real life.
Yeah.
And I chatted with Ipicario for a while, Ernesto, maybe Ernie. Maybe I'm on Ernie terms with him. No, but I talked to him for a while as well, which was super cool. Henke Kellner, chatted with him for a long time, which is cigar royalty. And we really talked to these people. It wasn't just like, oh, let's take a picture. It was like really chatting with them. So, it's just you're walking around in this massive event space where there's 50 tables or something. And around you is just, you look to the left and it's Lido Gomez, who's the owner of LFD. And you look to the right, it's Henke Kellner. And these people are just walking around you. So it's very intimate. You get a lot of one-on-one time with these people. And that's one of the coolest things. And I'm glad this festival is not like the Habanos Festival, which is 2,200 people. This festival is 200 guests allowed, which for me, it just makes it incredible because it's so intimate.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, this is the event where we thought we were going to get cigars, but we didn't. So we had to run to the car. I ended up smoking a Don Carlos Personal Reserve, which was not a bad cigar. And then I smoked, and then I smoked an Arturo Fuente 858 Maduro, I think. So I went with 2 Fuentes. And in this box, we got a La Flor Dominicana Airbender, which is a kind of a cool cigar. We got the new CAO Amazon Basin, which is kind of cool. We got a Davidoff Millennium Torpedo. No, actually, now I'm mixing up the events. Davidoff Millennium Torpedo. We got a Arturo Fuente Rosado Sun-Grown, which is a special, like this size, and it has a cedar sleeve. That's a special event-only cigar. You can't buy that one. We got some other cigars from the smaller brands that were not super rare, but not bad. But yeah, especially cool was just the ambiance. The food was incredible. It was all Dominican themed food on the first night.
Oh, nice.
We were in the central, like Parque Central, which is like the central park there, and they had like built this massive event space. My only gripe was that the music was like so loud that you couldn't even speak to the person next to you through the whole thing. That was a little bit of a shame. But other than that, it was just, I mean, pretty much as good as it gets.
Nice. Very good. And this was a late night as well, I guess.
Yeah, this was the earliest of the dinners. This one actually ended at like 11-ish.
Yeah.
So this was not that long. There was not a lot of stuff happening. Like it was the dinner, there was music, but beyond that it was not that crazy. But again, open bar, we drank a lot of rums. We went to the Remy Martin cognac booth where they made like these really good cocktails. Yeah, it was just an amazing time.
Yeah, I've seen videos, and I mean, looks like heaven. But with those 2 cigars, then we're up at 15 after 5 days of your trip.
Oh my god! So 3 a day. That's actually not that insane. But again, I was traveling during 2 of them.
Exactly. Next day, we have the Arturo Fuente factory visit. Yeah. What happened on this day? What happened at this?
So, another early morning. They actually added a quick tour to the box factory, which is in front of the cigar factory. So for this tour, we went to the Zona Franca, which is the free zone, which is where they produce all this stuff. And that's like a massive industrial area where you have to go through like a security border thing. Basically, in the DR, they have this area where you could produce stuff without taxes. That's basically why they have to export and then import again if they want to sell in the DR. But that's where Arturo Fuente have their factory, and they have their box factory there. If you look at the vlog, you'll see the box factory. I couldn't film as much as I wanted. They said the only time we could really film in there was in the entrance of the factory. We could only do like a sort of panoramic style video. Yeah. The main reason for this was just because there were a lot of boxes in there that were unreleased, so they didn't want anything to get out there. I saw a few of them. I cannot name any names, of course. I don't want to break my trust with Fuente. But it was cool to see. That was another time, lad, when I just... The scale in my head was broken. First of all, it was so much bigger than I thought. Like, the box factory was massive. It was 2 floors. It was just so large. Yeah. But the whole factory from floor to top was just filled with boxes. So you know that Padron Fuente collab cigar that they announced last year? It's like this crazy expensive thing. Super limited. I never even thought I would sniff that cigar or seeing anything related to it because it's so extremely limited, right? There was an area of that box factory where from floor to ceiling almost was just stacks of that box.
Oh my God, yeah.
And just seeing that box in those quantities, it makes you realize, that everything is produced at that spot. Like, I don't know, the factory it looks big, but also it doesn't look that big. But then when you actually see everything there, you realize everything comes from here. Like, everything happens right here. All over the world, all the Fuente cigars will come from these boxes. It's just unbelievable. And that, I will say, by the way, that Fuente Padron box, it's like a meter long. Like, it is literally like the entire length of your arm when you put it out. I think there's like 100 cigars in there or something. But it's a massive box, incredible. And it's gorgeous. So that was the first part, and that was not actually a plan.
That was a bonus thing, right? You said.
Yeah. The Fuente tour was really well organized, though. And then when you see the vlog, we went over to the actual cigar factory. And again, I need to really mention this because the chateau, you can't go to it normally, but it's easier to visit if you know someone. Yeah. The factory is pretty much impossible to visit. Right. Like, you have to basically be related to or be very close to the Fuentes personally to even go. The only time they ever open it up to the public is during the Procigar Festival once a year. And there's only one tour. So only on that day that we went, you can go to Arturo Fuente factory. And again, when we went there, we're welcomed by a band playing Cuban or Dominican music, and we are welcomed in this like beautiful entrance, and it looks incredible. It's like a beautiful hotel lobby, and there's a bar again where we could drink anything and coffee, and we got some cigars immediately, and it was 9 a.m. And we got a beer. I don't know why all these Dominicans wanted to drink beer in the morning, but I just followed the vibe. And we had an Arturo Fuente Sun Grown. It was a massive cigar. It was heavy to start, but I had it anyway. So that's cigar number one of that day. But it was a beautiful lobby. Carlito's kids were there in the beginning, and Ciro Castella, again, the CEO, they gave some speeches. And then we were welcomed into the factory, and the entrance is modeled after a restaurant that Carlito used to go to. So it's like 2 floors, and it's a gorgeous place, but instead of restaurant tables, they have rolling tables for the rollers. And there's a fountain in the middle. And it looks pretty big, but it looks like the factory is mostly that room until you actually start entering, because there are doors on all the sides of that sort of main area where you have the factory or the fountain and the rollers tables. And through each doorway, there are hallways, and they're really kind of cramped hallways with decorations everywhere. And in these hallways, there's just room after room after room of different themed rolling rooms where there are like 50 rollers in each room. Yeah. And it's like a maze. I mean, to this day now, I'm still thinking back to it, and I have no idea where we were at any point in that factory. Yeah. It was really like a labyrinth. I mean, you go down one hallway and there's tons of rooms, and then you go downstairs and upstairs, and it felt like it never ended. And it was crazy, man. It was really crazy. And each room had a theme. So there was one theme which was a music themed room, and there was one that was art themed. Like, again, it was over the top. There's music playing everywhere, and it was luxury. And another point that I need to hammer home: this factory is beautiful. Every single room is so pristine, so fresh, so clean. It's so well decorated. If you look at any of the pictures, if you go on the Procigar Instagram, look at pictures of the other factories. Now, again, they're clean and everything. It's not like in some factories you see in Cuba where it looks like, you know, it's a safety hazard. Like the factories are nice, but they are industrial factories. Right. You know what I mean? Like there's no, you know, the roofs are really tall. It looks like a factory building, like where you would make anything. The Fuente factory is, again, it's like a home. Like, it is so nice, and it's kind of crazy because it's the only place in the world that's like that, and there's nothing that compares. And again, Carlito just goes so far above and beyond. It sounds like I'm really like kissing up to the Fuentes, but you have to take a look at my video of the factory and then take a look at the pictures of the other stuff to really comprehend this. There's nothing that even comes close. Like, this is a different stratosphere, and it's crazy how far. But that's the Davidoff one is not even close.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why also it makes sense that Fuente is what it is. Like, the brand is how it's received around the world. I mean, it goes back to the management that he has there and what he's doing at each step along the way. And that's nice that it's reflecting in the product.
Yeah, I just read a article on Half Wheel today, actually, which talked about Cuba and his parting thoughts from the Habanos Festival on Half Wheel. And one of the headlines was like, the Cuban roller mass exodus continues. Like, they're losing. Most of the factories in Cuba are at half capacity because they don't have enough rollers. On the other hand, in the Fuente factory, there's a whole room called the Veterans Room. And it's just old people that have been there at least 25 years. And you have these like old men that have been there for their entire professional lives, partially because it's such a nice environment, but they get paid a good amount of money to actually make a good living there. Like, you have people that would never ever want to leave, and it's a completely different vibe. And again, they have a different philosophy at Fuente, and they embody, you know, what it means to actually be a family company in a different way. Like, they put their family name on the company, and you know, they want to live up to that. I think that's what Carlito does. That's why he wants to make it so nice, because it's like, it's not a brand. It's more of like it's his legacy. I mean, that's I think what he views it like.
Yeah, definitely. Anything special happened at the factory.
Are you hinting at Carlito? Yeah. After the whole tour, again, watch the YouTube video for a better understanding of it. We had lunch, and it was a beautiful lunch. Again, roast pig. I had roast pig 3 days in a row there, but it was delicious, so I'm not going to complain. But it was Dominican food. It was really good. It was a whole buffet as well. They actually had their rum, their family rum. They had a barrel there for the lunch. Oh. But Carlito came to hold a speech, and he said hi to a couple of people. And this is, again, I'm going to give praises, but I have to. I mean, I chatted to Carlito for a while there. And you guys know that we've been on the show, Meet the Professor. And when we met Jose in Stockholm last summer, he sent a video of us saying hi to Carlito, like he wanted us to say hi to Carlito, whatever. And like, so I know Carlito has seen us a
few times, yeah.
Yeah, but I expected him to recognize me.
Yeah.
But it was kind of touching the level that he recognized me, because he saw me across the room in that like lunch area, and he pointed at me and came up and like he gave me a hug that was like almost threw me off a little bit, because it was like, I don't know, he really like dug his face into like, I don't know, it was a very like a family style hug. Like he's a very loving guy, and I know that, you know, he greeted some other people that he knew, like the Newmans, that way. So he has a lot of like love in that way, like affection. But he talked to me as if we'd known each other for a long time, and it was extremely impressive because he meets so many people, and the fact that he knew exactly who I was to the extent that he did, and we talked for a long time, and we talked a little about Jose, of course, and he asked about you as well, lad, and it was just like, you know, I don't know, he's an extremely warm person. Of course, he definitely has a talent to recognize people. Yeah, I know some people are definitely worse at that. I'm not great with names and faces, but he was. I mean, he said immediately, you know, Carl, it's crazy to see you in real life finally, you know, all that stuff. Like, I don't know, that was really surprising. Yeah. But yeah, that was really awesome to finally talk to him. He gave a big speech where he cried again. You know, he's such an affectionate guy. Like every time I've been on like a Zoom with him on like where he gave a talk, and he cried there too. Like he really he's very emotional. Yeah. But that was really cool. And yeah, to finally see Carlito, to meet him in real life was really special. And the way really he exuded the warmth was quite surprising. I didn't expect that, really.
Wow, beautiful moment. Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine what it was like to meet him in person.
Yeah, I wish you were there, man.
Yeah, no, the time will come, I guess. Yeah. But anything more on the Fuente factory, or should we move on?
No, that was. I think that's a good summary of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So on this day was also the tasting seminar with Davidoff, right?
Right.
And how was this? Was this better planned and executed than the first one?
Yeah, Davidoff did a better job. Again, a lot of the tours were late, so it was very empty. Mm-hmm. But this was a cool thing. Davidoff did another good job, and this was kind of the cherry on top for me in this whole relation with Davidoff, because again, they went above and beyond what I expected. So this was a really cool tasting event. It was on the itinerary. It was called a cigar contest, but it wasn't really a contest as much as it was a blind tasting seminar. I mean, there was a contest element to it, but basically what they did is Davidoff brought forward a cigar that everyone got, and it was a blend that they did not disclose, and we had to smoke it, and we got a sheet, and we had to guess what tobacco was in it. And at the front of the room, they had 9 different types of tobaccos, and it was a description of each tobacco, and this is tobacco that they cultivate. And we were supposed to guess, there were 5 leaves in that cigar that we smoked, and we were supposed to guess which 5 of the 9 was included. And from those 9 tobaccos, they had fumas. Fumas is a concept that you use in blending, where they used a Connecticut wrapper, and then the rest of the cigar was one type of tobacco. Yeah. So they had 9 different. So you had a Connecticut broadleaf, which was just Connecticut broadleaf and the Connecticut wrapper. You had San Andres, you had Cubra, you had Piloto Cubano, you had all this different stuff. And you could try up to 5 of them to try to help you out. I got 3 of 5. The winner got 4 out of 5. But yeah, whatever. That was a fun thing. We didn't win anything, but it was just a really fun experience. What we choked on, though, we thought that because the cigars were pretty squishy and they looked a little sloppy, we thought that they were the cigar that we tasted, the blind tasting one, was made for this event. But it turned out it was actually the Davidoff Escurio in a Corona Gorda size. So it was an actual line that they had, which I didn't think. Because if we would have thought that, we could have probably figured it out. But I'd never had that cigar, especially in that size. So I didn't even know that existed, actually. I'd never seen that size. So he threw us off there, but we talked to Pedro Pablo, who was hosting the event. It went really smoothly. And he gave us a bunch of cigars. So I went home with like 10 fumas. So I have these really cool Davidoff fumas that were only for that event. Cool. So that was really cool to go home with.
Yeah.
And Davidoff being Davidoff, those tiny cigars that are just, for this event / the factory, they were perfectly rolled. They look absolutely pristine. Wow. And they smoked like a dream. I actually smoked one at the white dinner party that night. But that was a cool event. That was much better organized, even though a lot of people were late from their tours.
Yeah, it sounded like it was more, planned out, and they actually had a goal with the seminar.
And Davidoff went all out, man. Like, that's the thing. Like, they really put effort into that event.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm not going to shade Ipicari Brugal, but that event was a little more bare bones. It was just smoking a cigar and talking about it. This was like a well planned.
Exactly.
More thought. I didn't expect for Davidoff.
Yeah, super cool. And so you mentioned it, that the white dinner party was this evening. Yeah. It was, I guess. I mean, was it more of the Dominican food and music? Was there anything?
Not really, actually, surprisingly.
No?
This is the peak of the whole festival. Apparently, this is the biggest event that happens in Santiago all year. It's the biggest public party because you can buy tickets to each gala dinner. Like I said, individually, a lot of the local population, I guess upper class Dominicans, buy tickets just for this event. Because there were probably more closer to like 500-600 at this event. Okay. So a lot of the people that have attend this are Dominicans. It's super special because the big monument in Santiago, which is sort of like their Eiffel Tower or Statue of Liberty, whatever. It's the big like symbol for that city. It's a big monument on the top of a hill, and that is not used for anything except for this event.
That's really cool.
It's just a public landmark normally. But only the Procigar White Dinner Party is the only event that ever gets to use that. So they light it up for that dinner, and you can be there, and you're on top of like the whole city. It's beautiful. Everyone's wearing white. It's a much bigger party, so there's more of a dance floor at the end of that evening. The food was a little more like barbecue, and there was sushi. I mean, it was incredible. It's a massive buffet. There's all different kinds of stuff you can see in the video. But it was not like Dominican themed like the first dinner. This was more of like a big party.
Yeah.
You got an awesome box. There was a Don Carlos that was special edition just for that festival. The box itself was absolutely gorgeous. But the Don Carlos we got, it was called like on the list of cigars for that box. It says Don Carlos II, like Roman numerals for 2. Yeah. Which is not a cigar that's produced, and it has like a cedar sleeve, so it's a special size something. It's a cigar I've never seen before.
Yeah.
There was a Davidoff Gran Cru Toro, LFD Capítulo 2, PDR Vignette. There were really just cool cigars. Some stuff that the PDR cigar that we got, they only made 500 boxes for, so it's pretty rare. But again, we brought cigars. I smoked an Opus X Robusto that I got at the Fuente factory, because at the Fuente factory they gave a pack of cigars as well. It was an Opus and 2 other cigars I can't even remember now.
Yeah.
But I smoked the Opus, then I smoked a Davidoff Fumas, and then I smoked a Saga, the one that I got at the first cocktail. So 3 cigars that dinner.
That dinner, exactly. What
one
brings
cigar,
the total of the day?
1 cigar at the Fuente factory.
Exactly, yeah.
1 cigar at the blind tasting, and 3 cigars at the dinner. So 5 that day. Yeah. That was a heavy day. But it was a big party, and I had a shit ton of rum.
Yeah,
how was it was a really big party.
How was the vibe there at the end of that party? I mean, was it slosh fest? Was it
No, not slosh. I mean, because there's so much good food and you're kind of drinking a little bit all the time. I didn't get drunk. Like we just had a bunch of rum and it was a nice vibe. But there's some people that partied hard. Klaus Kellner, Henke Kellner's son, who a lot of people know, he was partying every night. He was in the middle of the dance floor every night.
Legend.
Carlos III, I mean Carlito Fuentes' son, he was kind of I think he wanted to party more than he could. I think because he was sort of representing Fuente at the dinners. Yeah. I think he has to kind of, but he's young, he's our age, so like I get that he wants to be involved. Tabacalera Palma, who makes La Galera cigars, the guy that's representing them, his name is Jose Blanco. Jose Manuel Blanco, and he's our age too, lad, and he looks younger. He looks like an 18-year-old. Mm-hmm. He went nuts every night as well. So it was really fun to see these like big faces of these big brands just party it up with everyone else. It was really. And Henke Kellner, I do not understand, man. That guy's close to 80, and he was dancing on the dance floor.
That's so awesome.
All night.
That's so awesome. Yeah.
And he was every morning when we were at the buses to go to the fields. He was first there, and he was talking to everyone. And just I don't get how he has so much energy.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't get it, man.
Need to think about Henke Kellner when when you wake up after a night out.
When you're tired, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, so 20 cigars in. And we wake up on the last day of the festival.
Yes, sir.
This was the La Aurora field day.
Right.
And this is what I was getting to earlier, but was the wrong day, where you got to roll the different, try to roll the cigars. Tell us, what did you get from this day?
Yeah, so this event, it's more chill. It starts at 11, so you actually get to sleep in a little bit. Mm-hmm. But for this event, they rotate. So I think the year before it was La Aurora again, but before that it was La Flor Dominicana. So they choose one random brand where they do they set up a big event space in the middle of the fields, which is super cool. Mm-hmm. And then they have tons of activities. This is where you can just basically get as many cigars as you have the energy for, because they had like a dart game where you had to like hit a certain thing and you would get a cigar, and you could kind of just stay there all day and basically get as many cigars as you wanted. And the girls that were working there were really nice, so if you talk to them a little bit, they gave you like an extra cigar, you joke around a little bit, and they're basically nice. Like they just gave you as many cigars as you wanted. You got a few cards when you got there, and then it said the brand on that card, and if you went to that brand and gave in the card, you got a cigar. And Fuente, like I got the Fuente card, and they gave out personal reserve Robusto, so that's like pretty nice. Yeah. Again, Davidoff, I didn't get their card, but I talked to the lady there, and she just gave me one of the Winston Churchill cigars anyway. That's like a nice one, so like again, Davidoff just so nice. And there were like 6 food stations. Always really great food. There was a coffee station where you could listen to a coffee seminar if you wanted. You could go on La Aurora tours if you wanted. So there was a shit ton of stuff to do. Yeah. There was a hat painting thing, and there was a cigar rolling event, or not really an event, but you could just go to a booth and they would teach you how to roll a cigar. I was surprised by how like easy they make it look, because people were roasting me on Instagram that I was doing it slowly, but I urge you guys to try it yourself. It is really hard to make it look nice, like because the leaf is super elastic and it's easy to work with in that way, but it's also like it's hard to roll a cigar and make it look even and pretty, right? So like that's why I was going so slowly.
Yeah, it sounded like it went better for you than for Osvaldo, right? If I remember what you were saying.
Man, Osvaldo was rolling for like an hour. I mean, every time I looked over to him, he had a new cigar because he kept fucking up. I did it on my first try, but I got a lot of help from the guy from Tabacalera Palma, which was he was a cool guy. And he rolled a cigar for me too that has like a Procigar band on it. So you got another cigar there. But yeah, I went home with a lot of cigars there. They had a trivia event and a bingo event. I actually won the trivia event to give a little bit of flex there.
Hats off.
I didn't actually win, but the people ahead of me, there were 2 people ahead of me. Both of them one was Klaus Kellner himself. And so they didn't really allow him to win because, of course, he he's a family member. Like
Exactly, yeah.
So it wasn't really a fair game. But yeah, I ended up actually winning. I came third out of everyone, but I ended up winning it, and I got some cigars through that as well. So yeah, just endless activities, endless cigars, endless drinks. I mean, it was just that day. I had to say the field day was a lot better than I thought. It was a lot more fun than I thought.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And okay, getting to the kind of final event that capped all of this off. I mean, wait, just to ask before this, was there a tasting seminar this day planned as well that you skipped, or was it nothing?
No, this day was not. It was just a field day until the afternoon, and then we actually had a few hours until the gala dinner, which was nice. Because I was exhausted.
Exactly. I mean, it's the final dinner, so you kind of wanted to be rested up for that.
And I will reveal for the cigar count lad, I actually didn't smoke a single cigar at the field day. Can you believe it?
Oh, you didn't? No, okay.
Man, I was so exhausted. I smoked 5 cigars the day before.
Yeah.
My palate was so dead. I knew that if I smoked a cigar, I would not be in the mood during the gala dinner, and the gala dinner was the last thing, and I really wanted to smoke a cigar there, so I didn't.
I mean, it makes sense.
I just enjoyed all the events.
It makes sense.
And there was so much stuff going on in the field day that you didn't really need to smoke.
Yeah. All right, but going into the gala dinner then, this evening, I guess, was heavily focused around the auctions that you'll be talking about. Where was the setting of the gala dinner?
So this is at the Centro Español, which is like a private. It's kind of like a country club, if you know that they have in the States. It's like a private member club, but it's a beautiful event location, amazing food again. But when you got in, it was very extravagant. The entry for this one, they had like performing artists by the entrance. There was like a huge Procigar 3D sign and craziness like that. So it was a really extravagant event. The box that we got was really nice. We got a Arturo Fuente Don Arturo in a double figurado. We got an Ipicarillo Platinum Bash, which is an unreleased. Davidoff Aniversario Toro, LFD Lanox Churchill.
Oh, nice.
La Aurora Orsdage, which is a really expensive and rare cigar. So it was a really good mix of cigars. But this event was a little bit of an anticlimax, I have to say, because it's the end of the festival. Maybe it's because you've had 2 gala dinners in a row. The food was amazing again, but it was kind of the same thing. But the auctions take up so much time of it. Yeah. And that's, again, a double-edged sword, because you can't really complain, because the auctions are for charity, and they raised $500,000. That's a beautiful thing. But you have so many fun activities before, and if you're not participating in the auction, you're just kind of looking at, like, you're just kind of sitting there listening to people bid for these amazing humidors, and it is cool, and it's awesome to see that they were presenting stuff about the charity. But after that, they just said, thank you guys for this festival. They showed a short video, and then after that, it was just kind of open dance floor, and people just trickled out.
Right.
So there was no real, I don't know. The ending was a little bit anticlimactic because people just trickled out. There was no like big finale really, except for the auctions themselves. But yeah.
Exactly. I guess that's one of the climax or highlights for some people. I mean, the ones that are actually bidding in the auctions.
Yeah, of course.
But those sums were kind of too hefty, I guess, to to bid on.
I did not have 55,000 to spare for the
Davidoff,
unfortunately.
What was the most impressive humidor there that you?
The most impressive one, funnily enough, was the De Los Reyes one. It was like they had cut a stem of a mahogany tree, and they had kept its natural shape and carved a humidor out of that, and that was gorgeous. And on the top, they had carved boats out of that same piece of wood. And they were like sailing on the ocean, which was supposed to represent the journey of tobacco in the colonial times.
You couldn't quite see it that well on the picture of Procigar, but it sounded incredible.
I think I have a video. I in the middle of the entrance, they had all the humidors for the evening, and I took a video. I'm not sure how great a video I got either, but it was a gorgeous, gorgeous piece.
Yeah,
that one was really good. The Fuente one was beautiful, and we actually saw that one at the Chateau. So I have a good video of that one. The Davidoff one was kind of nice. Some of the stuff was a little underwhelming. I'm not going to name it. It feels bad to say, but some of the brands, the humidors were a little bit boring.
Yeah.
The LFD one was gorgeous as well. They had a special edition Linux.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just cool to see that it goes to charity, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
And I smoked a Davidoff for the
exactly.
count. I smoked the Davidoff. What did I even smoke now? I can't remember. Was it an Anniversario? I think it was an Anniversario. And a Don Carlos. I wanted to end with one of my favorites, although my palate, man, that was an awful cigar. Because my palate was just so dead. It was a Don Carlos, I think it was number 3. It was like a Corona, which I love that size and I love that cigar, but it tasted like dirt. My palate was so shot at that point. Like really, my palate was exhausted. So that was the final cigar of the trip. No, not of the trip, of the festival.
Yeah, exactly, because I mean the festival ended on this day, but then you had one more day in the Dominican.
Yeah.
You had a beach day.
A day and a half, I guess.
Yeah. So the final days, what? Yeah. Were you just kind of like cooling off from the festival? What?
Yeah, we actually got up pretty early the next day because we wanted to do a beach day. I mean, I didn't want to be the first ever tourist to go to the DR and not even see the ocean. I mean, we saw the ocean in Santo Domingo, but I mean, not go to the beach. That would be nuts.
Exactly.
So we went to Manny's beach house in Sosua in the north coast, which was really cool. We drove through the mountains. The guys smoked a cigar during the day. I couldn't do it still. I mean, I was just so exhausted from cigars. There's such a diminishing, like a returns effect with cigars. Because like when you're smoking that much every day, the cigars didn't even feel special. You know, like I was smoking a Davidoff barely thinking about it. And like, you know, at that point I was like, I'm not going to smoke today during the day. I'm not going to light up a really nice cigar and forget about it. So I just enjoyed some rum and coconut water and some good food and some beer and more rum and awesome. The ocean, man. It was a chill day. But in the evening, I smoked my final cigar because that was the last night there.
Right.
I tried a PDR cigar. I'd never had a PDR cigar from their own line before. I smoked a PDR with La Maduro. It was actually really good. And that was final cigar of the trip, actually.
Yeah. Wow. Nice.
Because after that, we just drove to the airport. It was classic Dominican traffic. The whole highway, there's just one highway connecting Santo Domingo and Santiago. Those are the two biggest cities. Like 60% of the population lives there. And wouldn't you imagine that the whole highway was like blocked off because of a goddamn bike race? So I for a while I thought I was going to miss my flight. It was unbelievable. Yeah. They wouldn't let cars pass because there were bikes.
So you were shitting your pants before you got home because you thought you might miss the flight, but then you were also shitting your pants when you got home because you had to make it through customs.
You're a good host, lad. Yeah, I'm not sure if this will make me liable, so I'm just going to say that allegedly I brought over 200 cigars back to Sweden in an entire empty suitcase. Allegedly, I did. I checked in an entire empty suitcase to go down, and I filled it to the brim with cigars. And allegedly, I crossed the limit 4 times over what is allowed to be brought to Sweden. Yeah. They stopped the woman in front of me in customs, so I genuinely shot my pants. But when I got through, I was so relieved.
That came into Terminal 2 in Stockholm.
Yeah.
So luckily they weren't checking everybody.
Yeah, thank God.
All right, yeah. Hell of a week. I mean, you could just say kind of in total. Like, it was 8 days, but 23 cigars in kind of net 7 days, let's say, since you were traveling.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So, what did
20,
you say?
How many did
you
say?
Sorry. 23, yeah.
23 and 7. Okay, so about a little more than 3 a day. That's not that bad.
Yeah.
That's actually a little less than I thought.
Yeah.
But interesting, yeah. Then that is my max. That's good to know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
like that is I can't average more than that.
Yeah.
More than that is unbelievably exhausting, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So now that you've been home for a while as well and being able to, digest the trip a bit more, what would you say if you had to pick out 3 moments, like your top 3 moments of the trip?
It's hard to say individual moments. I think that, the easiest, like, best one single moment was probably meeting, like, Carlito. That was really cool. And him, like, just talking to Carlito. And I'll also say, like, talking to Eric Newman, who's the head of JC Newman. and talking to Henke Kellner, like actually having conversations with these people just casually was, I'd say that's a really cool moment.
Yeah.
The second best, I'd probably have to say, oh, that's hard. I'd say smoking the Chateau Fuente at the Chateau. Yeah. If I have to say like one moment locked in my memory forever, it'll be like I can still, if I close my eyes, see the view and that, like me holding that cigar and just like
that's so special.
Yeah, breathing it in. That's one moment for sure.
Also, like completely alone there.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
the fact that was a private tour. Mm-hmm. Lastly, I think maybe seeing. Maybe it's an underrated one, but I think when we were at the factory or the farm for Davidoff and seeing there was a processing place where they had like these stacks of tobacco, these bales of tobacco that were fermenting. And then him just uncovering one and starting to rip open that tobacco as well to show us and smelling it. And him just going, this is Ecuadorian Habano that we just got. And, we did the whole podcast episode on Ecuador and just seeing all this tobacco coming from the entire world at this one place. And just, I don't know, that was kind of a mind-blowing thing. So I think that might be the third.
Yeah. But then again, it's like so many impressions since every day was so stacked with things. We've really...
It's a blur, man.
I mean, tried to cover... every day here for you, but I mean it just doesn't really fit as well into a podcast, doesn't even fit into like your memories really, I guess, since everything's just kind of blurred together. So I mean, it's crazy. Incredible experience it must have been. And probably, I mean, for you, the coolest cigar related thing ever so far. All
right, so I sent you some follower questions. Maybe we should do these quick fire.
Yeah, so let's get. We did answer. You did answer some of them through, I mean, just recapping, but let's go through here. So Andrew Maiorino asks, favorite cigar you smoked there?
Ooh, that is very tough. The Davidoff Puro de Oro was a huge disappointment. I think a lot of people would have expected that to maybe have been the best. The Opus X at the White Dinner Party was really good. This is really difficult. I have to, you know what? No, the one that tasted the best in the moment was probably at the welcome cocktail, the Davidoff Grand Cru that we got. That cigar was so, maybe it was because everything was just about to start. Like, we talk about this a lot, lad. Like, the moment makes the cigar more than the cigar makes the moment. Yeah. And I think just because it was such a hype for the whole festival to begin, and that was a really good cigar, because that tasted like sweet candied nuts, you know what I mean? Like it was just a delicious. I think that's the one that was my favorite that I like, because the rest of it was just, it was so overwhelmed by the occasions that I didn't, I didn't focus too much on the cigars.
Yeah, no, I get that. You answered your favorite non-cigar moment in the previous one, and how it was meeting Carlito. So I'll continue with. What cigar did you smoke that you didn't like, and why? This was Adam B. who asked this question.
Okay, so the Don Carlos I mentioned, that was one that surprised me a lot, that I didn't like. Beyond that, was there anything that I was surprised by? The EP Carrillo, the Inch, I guess I didn't like. That's not that surprising. I think so. So the non-surprising one was probably that, because a 64 ring gauge is the opposite of what I like.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the most surprising one is probably the Don Carlos at the end. I think that was the worst ones.
Yeah. All right. Next question from ATGRYSZ. I don't know if that's like asks or says, love your videos of the trip so far. What did you learn?
Yeah, he said short and sweet, right? So because I've said so many learning moments already. I think an interesting thing that I wanted to mention in this podcast that I learned that I didn't know was the case. When I harvested that tobacco from Davidoff, I did not know that raw cigar tobacco leaf was so incredibly oily. Like just touching it for a second, your hands were covered in just like this oily residue. They were almost wet. That was incredibly crazy. And I also did not think tobacco would be so elastic. When
Yeah.
it's wet, it's I don't know what to. It's almost rubbery. Like it's crazy. You can really stretch it out so much. I also did not think that cigar tobacco. They age it for so long, right? Like we were in the Arturo Fuente factory, and they were bales from the 90s in there. So they age it for so long, and when they age it at the same humidity that we age like ready-made cigars, like 60 something.
Yeah.
So that tobacco is way too dry to be rolled like that. So after they take that tobacco out from those rooms, they actually wet them, and we saw that at the Davidoff factory. They just like stick it in some water, and I did not think it was like that. Like I thought maybe they slowly introduced humidity to them or something, but they take this tobacco and they just dip it for a quick second into like in water, and it's very rudimentary. It's a lot of the cigar tobacco production is extremely rudimentary and basic and agricultural still. Like it's all handmade. There are no machines, there are no robots. It's all just completely handmade.
That's
and
so
much more
awesome
basic than you think.
And just like a more autonomous world, in production.
And I think I have to say another thing that I get a conclusion from is we as consumers, we hyper focus on all these minute details, right? People are like, oh, should I store in 67 or 68%? At the end of the day, when they make cigars, they're pretty rough. Like it's pretty rough around the edges. It's not that meticulous. So I'm not saying don't humidify your cigars correctly, but like, just think of if you're over stressing, because I get a lot of DMs on Instagram, people really over stressing. It's cigars are not as delicate as you may think. Like the tobacco is treated pretty rough in the whole process.
Yeah, nice notes.
Was that short and sweet, lad?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, in comparison to the rest of this podcast episode. Okay, one final one then from Psycho Tantra. Why do you like the tobacco from the DR?
That's actually a really good one to end with. Yeah, that's a good question, because I mean, I could have gone to the Nicaraguan festival, I guess. There's a lot, and like, why not go to Cuba? I guess that's a similar question all in one. I think the Dominican tobacco, it's the best of both worlds. Like what I really love about Cuba and Habanos and the history, and why I still smoke a lot of the Cuban cigars, is the history. A lot of these Cuban cigars brands are so rich and old, and they have so much life behind them, even though they're all owned by the government still. They have so much life behind them, like I say. But the DR, unlike Nicaragua, for example, has a little bit of that. Like the DR or Nicaragua, I mean, it's a lot of Drew estate, like it's just new companies that are owned by some American. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing, but in the DR, you still have Fuente who have been there for a really long time and established it. And the DR has a super long, like La Aurora have been around for over almost 100 years now. So they do have a lot of history compared to a lot of the other places. But beyond that, I think Dominican tobacco is super versatile. Like Nicaraguan cigars, even though you can make some lighter stuff, the main core DNA of Nicaraguan stuff is still heavier, earthier stuff. Like with Dominican tobacco, you can grow these fillers that are used for the Davidoff cigars. You get these nutty, creamy flavors, or you can grow the stuff for the Forbidden 13 Opus X, which is a heavy cigar. That is a punchy cigar, and that's a Dominican Puro. So you get a lot more versatility, I think, than you do get in a lot of the other places. And it's just, they live and breathe tobacco there. I mean, it was so cool to see it up front.
Yeah. Very nice ending question and thoughts. And if there's anybody still left listening, we'll actually round it off now. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, lad.
Wow, I feel like a complete guest here, lad. You're making me...
exactly.
No, but well moderated, lad, and you're still awake, which is surprising through my long rants that you didn't fall asleep. But thank you, lad. Thank you.
But it was,
questions.
It was sounded like an absolutely incredible trip, to say the least. And thank you so much for sharing with us, and for everyone else, just keep looking out on Instagram for the videos and all that, so you get to see this colorized. But thank you for this time, and
cheers.
Yeah, cheers.